Hello, children. Do you hear the sleigh bells? Oh, has Santa landed on the roof? And look there to the left. The elves are working away in their workshop, making toys for all the children. And look across on that mountain. It's Jeff Keighley. He's absorbing all games media. He's opened his mouth unusually wide and is sucking in all the games information like Kirby. It truly is a wonderful time of year. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast.
I really didn't expect that, but yeah, just so for all our listeners out there, yeah, Michael said he was going to do something funny for the intro. Didn't know what it was going to be.
I didn't say it was funny. I said I was going to try something.
But we got a few laughs out of it as well.
Yeah,
so.
a few laughs, a few
from
tears.
us.
Yeah, exactly. The most important
Hopefully you're all laughing out there. Anyway.
You can pause the podcast just to let the laughter subside and then we'll continue. Sean, what are we talking about today?
Cool. So yeah, as Michael has like kind of alluded to in his opening, we're well, it's near the end of the year, not quite yet, but we're getting there. So we want to have a look back at 2023. That's the year it is. It's been like, I'm sure everyone can agree, it's been like an incredible year for gaming. One of the biggest, at least for releases and stuff, that I can really remember, you know, and that's huge. Like probably since the, I want to say, what gen are we on? 9th?
God, who knows?
Yeah,
man.
7th gen was PS3, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, yeah, so since then, as far back as I can remember. But yeah, so kind of we're just going to talk through like some main things that happened through the year, including like releases, some drama and so on. But I want to start by just kind of like going around the room and over the internet waves to Steve. And,
the internet waves, what my grandmother would call the internet, yes.
The radio waves. No, I just want to kind of get like what has been your impression of the year so far? Like I said, it's been like one of the craziest and busiest years for gaming, but yeah, kind of like just give me your impressions on the year one at a time. Form an orderly queue. Sorry.
No. You
Steve,
know what?
let's
be experimental. Let's all say our views at the same time and just let people like distill it that way.
Maybe we'd harmonise somehow.
Yeah, but no, you're right, man. It has been a mad year, like many highs and a considerable amount of lows as well. Yeah, like it really, I feel like there's just been like steady like games just knocking it out of the park one after another. For the last couple of months, like there's loads of games that people are raving about, like Diablo 3 everyone was not Diablo 3, sorry, Baldur's Gate 3 and Diablo 4, like everyone was raving about those. Like as recent towards the end of the year, Alan Wake 2, like Sean is gagging to play, absolutely gagging. Myself as well, as soon as I get around to the first one. And then of course, like we had the double whammy of Dead Space and Resident Evil 4, which both did really well. Yeah. And yeah, just like loads of games knocking it out of the park. But then you get like complemented by some of the really, really terrible games, which the obvious one that's immediately coming to mind is King Kong Skull Island. That one
looked amazing. Did you see any of that, Sean?
I didn't see that.
My God. Well, you were in for a treat. This was... I think it was not a full price game, but it was like 30 or 40 quid they were asking for this. And it looks like a mobile game from 10 years ago.
I think I might have seen like a screen capture of it or something.
Yeah, it was made in less than a year. Some random company got a license. Actually, here's a fun fact for you. Do you remember Big Rigs?
Yeah? No way it's the same company.
It's the same company. It's the same publisher, at least. I'm not sure if it's the same developer, but yeah, it looks absolutely... It looks enjoyably horrible from a distance, at least.
There's one cutscene that was doing the rounds for ages. It was absolutely amazing, where it's like, King Kong is facing off against some monster or whatever, and it's like, staring him down. And you can see King Kong doing like his big reaction, like, whoa. And then it cuts over to the monster, and like, it's literally just a JPEG. Yeah, like that's like no like animation whatsoever. Not even a 3D model, just a JPEG. Like, and that's it. Like that's all his reaction is.
Like what? Like, how do you end up releasing something like that though? Do you know, is it a cash grab? But surely there's going to be reviews on it which say it's terrible.
They're still going to make money because they have the Kong name on it. So it's like I think it's one of those things where they licensed the character of King Kong rather than the movie right of King Kong or something like
Right,
that. They got
okay.
around it some way that they could call. I think it's specifically called Kong Skull Island or something like that.
Right,
Something
okay.
like that, yeah.
But it's exactly what Steve described. Literally, just a picture of like a dinosaur or something like that. What it looks like to me is it wasn't finished, and it's releasing on this day no matter what. So even if this cutscene has just got placeholder assets in it, it's going out the door, lads,
Jesus.
because nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. These guys, they're like the guys who do it. They're called Game Mill, and apparently they have a reputation for doing this, where they literally just like acquire like a brand, and then they literally just like crunch a game out. And I heard one thing about them where like a lot of the times they tell the developers, make a game, a generic game, and we'll tell you what the actual brand, what the characters is, like much later down the line. Like, so like, you know, when they're making the game, they're just making something really bare
It's like a
bones.
template.
And then
like
yeah. Like, so, you know, have you seen all those like Nickelodeon games? Like there's the kart racers, the brawl games,
Yeah.
all those. They do all of those.
God,
Like,
I-
and there's
right.
so many of those.
they're going to get a fright when they make a 3D platformer, and then on the last day they say, "Oh, this is based on Oppenheimer, by the way." So you're going to have to add in some speeches.
But it's mad. Well, it's mad if they have a history of doing this that they're still getting the rights for shit. Because like, wouldn't they look at their back catalog and go, "Actually, nah, let's
They've
not."
probably made
you know-
profit, you know.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'd say it is, because I'd say like they encourage this kind of stuff, like all this like publicity saying, look how terrible this is. Like, because even like we were just saying, like I kind of want to, you said there, Michael, it looks enjoyably bad. I'd say people do want to pick it up to see how bad it is.
And it gets
And
people
that's how they make
talking
them
about
their
the
money.
brand as well, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of headlines about the Kong game, and like it would have just completely flown under the radar
Yeah.
otherwise. Something slightly similar happened with the Gollum game.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God, yeah, I
Was that
forgot
this
about
year or
that.
last year?
That was this
Yeah.
year
Oh,
as
was it?
well,
Fucking
yeah.
hell.
And it's so funny because that came out, and there had been a lot of like stinkers before then, like Redfall and Forsaken, and it made them
Jeez.
look fucking amazing in
Yeah.
comparison. Because those are just like
Forspoken, I think.
Forspoken,
Yeah.
sorry. It made them just look a bit mid rather than like just a complete train wreck that Gollum is.
Gollum.
Gollum, the Irish version of Gollum.
Gollum.
Eating his barn brack. It doesn't seem quite as much of a cash grab. I don't know. Like it did seem like the developer tried some things, but they just made a lot of mistakes and maybe didn't have the budget to see out their ambition. But it did look horrible. Like even if you've seen any footage from it, the text looks like a default text that you'd have on any sort of software. Some really bad games, but also, like Steve alluded to, some amazing games. It's been a really good year for remakes.
Yeah.
Actually. Like
Yeah.
with RE4, Dead Space, Metroid Prime as well. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's others that I'm forgetting about, but like absolutely like I'm sure some of those games are going to feature in our top games of the year as well.
For sure.
Oh,
yeah.
by the way, at the end of the podcast, we're going to go through our top 5 games that we've played this year as
Yeah.
well. Not necessarily the games that came out this year.
Yeah, but it's, I think like maybe part of the reason, it just seems like it's been like month on month there's been like sick release after sick release, like big releases as well as like some really good indie games too. But I wonder is some of it COVID, like delays during COVID, and now they're all hitting all at once, you know?
That's
Possibly,
exactly
alright, yeah.
what I think. Like a lot of these, like Baldur's Gate has been in development for years.
Yeah.
Armored Core 6 was
Yeah,
rumors
there's
for
another
that
one.
going back even before COVID.
Yeah.
That was in development. So I'm sure it's that sort of ripple effect from
Yeah.
the delays of COVID and studios having to realign how they work. Also, we're 3 years into the new console generation now, so everyone's familiar with the hardware. Like a lot of these are not on the older generation consoles as well, so it means that they can focus and make it more sort of bespoke for like newer generation hardware.
Yeah, we're starting to see proper like current gen games now, I guess.
Like,
Do you know,
sorry, go
what's
ahead.
really
Steve.
crazy actually is like I just remembered now, like this a testament to how good the games have been this year. I forgot that Tears of the Kingdom came out this year.
Yeah.
Like in a year where you forget like the Zelda sequel, the Breath of the Wild sequel is like not the top tier game that like, you know, not the biggest game of the year. That's crazy. Like
we'll probably get onto that as well, but that's got such a run for its money now, I feel, for Game of the Year.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
Game of the Year as well.
What we think will win, but it's just a testament to how many good things came out this year. Even like some like Spider-Man 2 came out recently and it got really good reviews, but I don't think anyone seriously considers it like going to win.
It's the thing. It's the thing. Like in any other like bare bones or normal year, like that probably would be definitely in contention. You know, like I think everybody would be looking at like Zelda and stuff as well as probably going to win. But anyway, do you know what? We'll save this for later because we don't want to get too deep into that right now.
Yeah.
Also this year for games, slightly tangential, but we've had a lot of cross-media game stuff, like specifically movies and TV shows doing really well. Like it seems to be like a sort of landmark year for games finally shrugging off that curse of bad video game adaptations. Like more specifically with The Last of Us TV show getting like so many awards nominations and critical acclaim. Have you watched that actually?
I still haven't watched it. No. It's on my list.
I personal opinion is I think it was good. Some really high marks towards the beginning of the season, and then just sort of lost me towards the end. To be honest. But still really, really good. Like one of the best video game thing. Like my wife watched it and she couldn't give less of a fuck. Yeah,
Michael got married between the last podcast and this one, by the way. That's pretty big news.
Yeah, that's the biggest gaming news of 2023. But apart from that,
Game of life.
Mario was one of the biggest films of the year. It grossed over $1 billion in the box office. And the other ones like Twisted Metal had a TV show.
I don't think that was great.
It didn't look amazing. Gran Turismo had a movie.
Film. Yeah, I don't know about that either.
And Five Nights at Freddy has been doing quite well.
I heard that
at the box office. Yeah.
And the Cyberpunk anime, I don't know if that came out last year or this year, but actually people loved that apparently.
Yeah, and Arcane, the League of Legends one as well. I think that was last year as well. But,
some amount though.
We're going to see a lot of video game adaptation stuff being greenlit over the next while.
And you know, I did hear that they're actually going to be doing a TV series of Donkey Konga, and I'm really looking forward to that.
He did it. He did it seamlessly again. Like it's perfect. Speaking of upcoming ones, there's a Fallout TV show that's going to premiere next year.
Oh shit! Yeah, I saw
that'd be
posted
good.
Something about it. Yeah.
From the makers of Westworld as well, and I think Fallout's a property that could lend itself pretty well to because none of the stories are canonical enough that they would have to follow them. Not like you would with Last of Us, where the story is so important to it. They could just have vague elements. It's more about like, oh, we've this interesting world. Let's see what we can make out of it. So that's one I'm like quietly confident about, and I quite like the Fallout series, so I'll be excited about that. But yeah, we're probably going to see fucking tons of adaptations. Klonoa 2. They're not even going to call it Klonoa. They're going to call it Klonoa
2. Cool. All right. Well, I just want to move on a little bit to talk about I guess like the state of the industry at the moment. There's
state of it.
The absolute state of it. So like as we said, obviously it's been a great year for games, but it's been a bit kind of turbulent, I think, behind the scenes. So the main thing I want to hit on first is acquisitions in video games. So I'm sure everybody's aware that the Activision Blizzard King deal with Xbox or Microsoft
recently went through.
Finally went through after I think it's definitely been over a year, maybe a year and a half of that being kind of like
they've been at it for a while, all right, yeah.
Yeah, so there was like a lot of like court proceedings and kind of regulatory bodies trying to block it and stuff. But in the end, Microsoft won and it's gone through. I think it's probably the biggest in terms of costs, like the biggest acquisition in tech ever, because I think it was 69 billion they got it for.
Perfect number.
Yeah, perfect number. Yeah, which is just insane.
Boy, if you think about the properties they're getting from that, it seems I don't know. Sorry to cut off your train of thought. Fine. Like, just my thoughts on it are, it's amazing for Microsoft, I guess, and fair play if you have like an Xbox and you want to play those games. That's going to be cool. But I think even related to other companies like Sony, it depresses me.
Yeah, well, this is kind of why I wanted to bring up the acquisitions in the first place, because you mentioned Sony with like Bungie and stuff, and there's been some other smaller acquisitions going on, and I don't think it's going to slow down. Even though maybe I don't think we'll see one as big as Activision happen for a long time, because there was a lot of pushback against that. Even though it did end up going through, so potentially something like that could happen in the future.
Sorry to go across you. You've probably seen because of those regulatory body proceedings, a lot of...
I think I know what you're going to say with this.
Yeah, a lot of email transcripts from around the time they were doing these acquisitions became public, and it came out that they mooted buying Xbox Microsoft mooted buying Nintendo, which is crazy because maybe you're aware that they went to Nintendo around the time Microsoft were getting into gaming around 2000, 2001 and offered the same thing. Nintendo laughed them out of the room. And Nintendo are even in a stronger position now because the Switch has been selling like hotcakes. The biggest selling game of the year is probably going to be Tears of the Kingdom. They're like so cash rich at the moment, like they don't need it, and they're like, maybe Steve could speak more to this, but I've read online, maybe by people not informed, that there seems to be some stigma or reluctance about Japanese companies being bought by
Western companies.
Yeah, they're very, like, this is the thing, like, Nintendo are super secretive, like it's really, really difficult to get any kind of interviews, like, with Nintendo from Game and Media. Like, this is why you don't see them that much and why they always control, like, the posts about them. Like, the Nintendo Directs are, like, one of their absolute babies now because they control all the, like, visual on Nintendo right now. So it wouldn't happen. You'd never in a million years would you see Xbox like trying to get that, because it's hilarious that they even thought that was a thing, because they can release like about 3 more like Wii U dud consoles and they'd still be fine. Exactly. They'd still be fine after that.
They still have Mario and Zelda and everything to fall back on.
Massive franchises. It does seem
interesting oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Steve.
Interesting thing that I learned just the other day. So I didn't know this, but apparently, so the Nintendo logo, which is just like, the name around in a circle. So I assumed that Nintendo was just kind of a gobbledygook kind of word they picked out of nowhere. But I discovered recently that this actually has kanji attached to it. So I was looking at the kanji, and now I know that Nintendo actually has a meaning. And the meaning of it is Nintendo means the Hall of Heavenly Duties.
Jesus.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it means. Is the Hall of Heavenly Duties.
That doesn't scream fun to me, but okay.
Well,
fair.
Bear in mind when Nintendo started, they weren't making games.
They were just like a card or a toy company or something, was it? Or made playing cards something?
I think it was even before that they did like something else. Like I think that was the first kind of media kind of thing they did. But I don't know. I think you might be right. Yeah, no, I think that was the first thing they did.
I thought you were going to say they were a plumbing company or something, and then they sort of made a tangent over to it. But just speaking on that, there's been rumors about like Sony or Xbox, because there is this like Cold War of buying up all these studios.
Yeah.
That they could potentially go for one of the bigger. Well, they have now with Activision, but go for someone like Capcom or Square Enix, and I really would not like that.
I think Square, like I was going to ask you all as well, kind of what do you think would be the next one? I feel like it probably will be Square Enix, because they're not doing amazing right now, and they have been kind of. I think they're one of the companies who have been like floating the idea of selling anyway.
I really wouldn't like that, because they're in a bit of a weird period at the moment where they have some huge successes and some failures as well. I would prefer them to just personally see out the storm and remain independent, because if you look at Capcom, I don't know, like
they're sitting pretty.
They're doing great right now.
They're doing fantastic now. If you think about them 10 years ago, they were fucking up their RE6, Street Fighter 5, the Devil May Cry reboot. They were like having subpar releases. Some of the sales were still very good. RE6 sold quite well, but they weren't knocking out of the park the way they are now. Now every Capcom game seems to be a home run, basically. But that wouldn't have happened if they're, well, I don't think it would have happened if they'd been bought in the same way. They had the independence where they could take risks and they spent a lot of time and money investing in the RE engine. So, and that's been like a huge benefit to them. I don't know if a bigger company came in and said, no, you're just making everything in Unreal. Like that's what you're doing. It's going to be cheaper for us. Like,
yeah, I think it depends on like if they did get picked up, who picks them up. Do you know? Like one thing I'll say on Microsoft's behalf, and now it's early days yet, things could obviously change, but they do really seem to want to like let Activision do their thing and let them make the games they want to make. Because like Activision's basically, I mean, okay, besides like Diablo and World of Warcraft and things like that, it's basically been a Call of Duty like factory for the last however many years. And there's a lot of companies within Activision that have made great games in the past, but now they've been allocated to being support studios for Call of Duty. And like one of the things I really hope is that like Microsoft's going to go in there and say, listen, you don't need to keep doing this. Like, what do you want to make? You know, and that's kind of what they like alluded that they're going to do. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And obviously, the downside to any acquisition, like you mentioned, Michael, is the exclusivity thing. And it started happening with Bethesda, with Xbox, like Starfield and stuff. And it probably is going to continue. I'm sure the next like Elder Scrolls is going to be an exclusive.
It's so laughable that they haven't confirmed that. They said, oh, we'll see how we feel on the day. And it's like, of course it's going to be an exclusive. What are you talking about?
I think it'll really depend, especially when it comes to Activision and Blizzard, it'll depend on the franchise, because there's some games that will come out that, okay, this isn't going to be like a blockbuster game. It makes more sense to have it multi-platform because they're going to get the revenue anyway. Do you know? Like one thing that people have been talking about maybe making a comeback is a Guitar Hero, which would, I think that would be sick, but I think that does need to be multi-platform if it does come out. Like if you made that exclusive to Xbox, I don't think it's going to sell enough for the amount of like R&D that's going to have to go into it. I don't think it would do well enough.
It's not something that would lend itself well to Game Pass either, because you need peripheral weight. Unless they presume a lot of people have some in their attic, they're not using. No,
I think they'd have to remake them, like, or make new versions of them. Yeah, so yeah, who knows with that? But getting back to your point that like. Actually, sorry, one thing I wanted to mention is not like now in the world we're in now, it's not just platforms that are making acquisitions, obviously, but like I'm not even talking about other studios. Disney and Netflix are talking about, when Netflix is already like going full force into gaming like Amazon, but Disney are even looking at it now. There was rumors that they were looking to buy EA. Yeah. And like, I like personally would absolutely like, okay, the one, maybe if Disney bought EA, it doesn't mean like everything might still be multi-platform, but they could just like turn them into a complete, like, you're just making the Star Wars and Marvel games now or something.
Or they could turn around and say, oh, we've developed, technology's gotten to a place where we can just stream games from Disney Plus. So if you ever want to play an EA game, you're going to have to do it through Disney Plus.
That's basically what Netflix is doing. Like, sure, Netflix were looking to buy Rockstar, or Take-Two, sorry.
I like, were they looking to buy them, or I do know they have a deal about some Grand Theft Auto side game that will be going to a Netflix platform.
Oh, okay, maybe that's it. I kind of heard that maybe at first they were looking to buy them, but then maybe it's changed. Or I
imagine some company's going to turn around and say, yeah, we want Grand Theft Auto 6 on our platform. You can only, if you download the fucking Yazoo app, you can play Grand Theft Auto 6.
Imagine like fucking Peacock manage to do that. Like, and does anybody have Peacock at all?
Peacock? No.
Peacock's another streaming service.
Is it? Yeah. What the fuck? There's too many of them.
They're the guys, they have like The Office, Parks and Recreation and all that. And like it's the NBC one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many of them at the moment.
It seems it is a bit sad in a way, because it just seems like we're going further down a road of exclusivity and separating stuff, you know.
Like on one, like just to give some sort of positive towards it, because I am quite against it, but like I guess it is great to see. Sometimes when you see smaller independent studios getting merged, that can be great sometimes, because it means they get the finance for games and those sort of structural supports. Like from what I hear, it's generally when a very small studio gets acquired, it's a better place to work in because they might have better health benefits and etc. just by being part of a bigger multinational company. But then what happens is they can get swallowed up into, like you're saying, with the Call of Duty machine. Like I think Ravensoft is one of the developers.
Ravensoft.
They used to make pretty interesting first-person shooters, and now
Singularity.
they're in the factory of Call of Duty, just making that stuff. I'm sure they're doing good work with that, but all this stuff doesn't breed innovation. It doesn't breed creativity. Like you need those small, like guys like Capcom still being around who aren't at the very, very top of the money game, but are still able to compete, able to make big budget games that have their identity in them. That's what I don't want to lose, basically.
Yeah, and I don't think like as long as companies like Capcom and stuff are still have those strong franchises and make smart moves with them, like I don't think they'll need to sell or want to sell. But the problem, like one thing because I've been listening to like a lot of podcasts about this stuff as well. The problem comes because like all these companies have shareholders. If say Microsoft or Sony went to them and the deal was so good, they like legally or whatever, they have to give it as an option to their shareholders. So the shareholders could just say, fuck yeah, that's a load of money, let's go for it. Yeah. Even if they don't need to, do you know, because at the end of the day, it's all about like money. Do you know what I mean? So even if they're doing strong and they're good on their own, if a deal comes through that's so good, they have to consider it. So that's, I guess, like the worry, you know?
The other thing is like what can happen, and I remember this happened to the Dead Space team as well, was like I think EA literally just bought their studio, and then they just fired the entire team after Dead Space 3 because like, you know, that didn't perform well enough, so you're all gone now. Hence why, you know, the Callisto Protocol came out afterwards. Like, so, you know, that could like very easily happen. Like, you know, once they acquire a studio, they could just write, we literally just want the brands associated with this studio, and like we don't need the staff. So
can I just that actually leads me on greatly, Steve, to the next kind of thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
which
I know it does.
Yeah,
Steve had that segue cooking in the oven there for 5 minutes, man.
Steve. No, it was a great point because I want to talk about some more turbulent news, which is kind of layoffs within the industry and studio closures. So yeah, we've kind of seen like. There has been like consistently really a lot of layoffs happening throughout the year, which is strange because it's been such a good year for games. But I think it's kind of come down to certain companies maybe growing too big too fast, and also the level of, or the length of time it takes to make like a good AAA game or like a big AAA game nowadays has significantly increased. Like we're talking 5 to 6 years possibly for some. And when that game releases and it's a stinker, that really hurts the financials of the company. So it's kind of inevitable that like people are going to get laid off. Just a little number for you here. It seems roughly in like throughout like game developers and related companies throughout the world in 2023, there's been 6,400 employees laid off within the industry. Yeah. So quite a few. One I wanted to mention particularly was Embracer Group. So these guys have like bought up a shitload of companies in the last few years. They're exactly kind of a good example of what I'm talking about, growing too big too fast. So they laid off quite a number of people this year, and they also closed Volition Studios, which is a studio that famous for Saints Row. They've been around for 30 years. The new Saints Row wasn't good, but yeah, I think. So a little bit of backstory, Embracer Group was in this $2 billion deal, I think with like a Saudi investment fund or something, to give them a cash injection, and it fell through, but they were obviously really banking on that. So once it fell through, they were like, we got to cut costs immediately. And they looked around their portfolio and just started trimming the fat, and Volition got the chop, unfortunately. So yeah.
It means every studio at this point, if you're in that sort of position where you're owned by a parent company, sometimes even not, one bad game and you're gone, basically.
That's kind of the way it's looking now, because things are so volatile, and like it's costing so much to make these games as well. Like we're talking like well over $100 million, like at times, you know.
That's why I fear, like, you gotta let some studios have time to cook in the oven. Like, look at From Software. They had a load of fucking clangers in between their Armored Core games until they had Demon Souls come out and be like the surprise thing and brought them to where they are now, where they're like up there as a huge, like they're going to move
Top
more.
cheese.
Top cheese, exactly, to use an industry term. They're moving into publishing now as well. They've been talking about doing a bit more of that, and Armored Core was a pretty big game for them this year, and Elden Ring was obviously massive. They wouldn't have, if they were owned by someone, they would have been like, oh, Kingsfield 2 didn't do well, so you're gone, lads.
Yeah, well, I think like it's really only become a thing in the last couple of years though, because like previous to this, like games weren't as expensive to make, and also they were coming out quicker as well. But now, just the way things have gone with like technology and like the level of quality people expect from these games, it's the investment and the time it takes to make them is just so big that it's a big risk to, especially for new IPs. If a studio comes and be like, got this great idea for a game, but it's a brand new thing, like it's gonna like put the gaming world on its head or whatever. Like it's a big risk to take to see if it'll pay off. And some studios are just playing it safe and be like, let's release another Call of Duty Modern Warfare, you know. And some.
But it'll be interesting to look at when we talk about what will be the game of the year. I'd say a lot of what we're talking about are sequels and remakes at the end of the day as well. And that seems to be, like, it's exactly what you're saying. You hit the nail on the head. It's risk averse, long development times and costs means that they only want to invest in sure bets. Even if you bring out a remake and it's shit, it's still probably going to make a bit of money because it's a recognizable brand or something like that, or a sequel.
The thing is, though, when you have those publishers, like they have extremely, almost hilariously unrealistic expectations about games. Like, because like the what's the, you know, they like Fortnite and those models. What are they called again?
Battle Royale.
Oh yeah.
No. The, like, you know, like where it's like constantly evolving.
Games as a service.
Games as a service. Yeah. So like the games as a service model is something that like every company wanted to invest in for a while because Fortnite was one of those games that kept bringing in money and more exponentially. And they keep thinking to themselves like, oh, well, we'll just do the same thing and we'll make money, not taking into, and like any person, any smart person, or even any stupid person would be able to point out why that wouldn't work, because like you can only invest so much time in one of those games. So you have tons of them. No one's going to invest in like any of them. You just need the one.
The market gets saturated, and then like there's so more failures than there is successes as a result. Yeah, exactly.
That's a great point, Steve, because I think that's really starting to happen now with like games as a service. There's so many, and like you guys said, you can only spend so much time playing one. Often people will get like really invested in one of them and be like, cool, this is my game now. But then when there's so many other games coming out that are trying to copycat others, it just gets saturated. And sorry, I'm just repeating exactly what he said. But
it's a salient point though, because, and the really funny thing I think about it is this isn't even the first time it's happened. MMOs did the exact same thing a couple of years back.
That's true,
where everyone was like, World of Warcraft took in a shitload of money. Let's make our own MMO. Oh, nobody's playing it because everyone's playing World of Warcraft.
And it's I was just going to add on. It's something that Sony seems to be investing in heavily at the moment, and I don't think a lot of people are happy about it. Like, I don't even think it's a good idea because I think they're a bit late to the game. Like, fair enough having one or maybe two in the works, but they seem to be like really going in on
Naughty Dog have been developing a Last of Us style one for a while.
I saw terrible.
Who even knows when that's going to appear? But everything we've heard about it is bad news. But that seems like that's such a corporate decision. They're like, we have this IP. This other thing is successful. Let me just mash both of those together. When, like, if you take a step back, Naughty Dog are like the premier single-player linear developer in the world. Why would you put a square peg in a round hole?
The reason so, like people love Sony so much is for their single player narrative games. Like that's what's got them to where they are today. And somebody at the top is like, maybe I guess it's not bringing in enough money for them. That's the only reason.
It's not that it's enough money. It's just that they see over the fence that that fucker over there has got a Fortnite or a Genshin Impact or an Apex Legends, and that's making them a fuckload of money. So where's my version of that? That's exclusive to the PlayStation.
Yeah, true. I guess like the thing is, say if you make a successful games as a service game, you got like a pretty heavy investment at the beginning, but then you're just refining it and adding things to it. But it's the same game for years. Whereas they're investing millions into a Last of Us or a Spider-Man or something, and then it's like, cool, where's the next one? You know, like we need another one next year or the year after.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's another load of million. Whereas like, and they're not getting consistent revenue in from that game, then it's just the initial sales, really, you know.
Well, like they'd have long tails over a lifetime,
of course,
but no, that's true. Like they're making as much as they can over that, but it's again like when it's never enough. Do you know what the problem is? I just figured out capitalism.
Holy shit,
I think I'm the
hot
first
take.
person to have that thought.
Do you know what that weirdly, just as you were talking, this is a very small tangent, but this reminded me a lot. Do you remember around like the PS3 era, like every single like single player game had to have like a really basic multiplayer attached to it?
Yeah.
Like so many
Spec
of
Ops
them.
The
Like
Line.
No, that multiplayer was. I was thinking about that. That was actually decent multiplayer.
never played it.
Fuck
It
off,
was,
Sean.
man. No, it actually was good.
You can. Sorry, opinions exist, but they're sometimes wrong.
No. It was good. It's good.
I was thinking of BioShock 2. That was the one that I
Did that
always
have
remember. 'Cause-
multiplayer?
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
You went up an octave there.
I
That
did.
was surprising, in fairness. Yeah. Well, like, and again, I'm sure the BioShock 2 multiplayer was decent for what it was, but no
I heard
one's
it was
buying it
okay.
for that.
BioShock 2 is the
Exactly.
weakest BioShock, though.
Says Mr. BioShock over here. Like,
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, I don't know. Come on, do you not agree?
Dr. BioShock.
Does nobody agree with me?
That's the only one I've never played, actually. So
There you
probably.
go. Answered. Cool. Right. Well, is there anything else before we move on to like our personal favorite games we've played this year, and then we'll move on to what we think will win game of the year? Is there? Or yeah, go ahead, Steve.
One thing. Do you know? I just remembered. Like I was checking here in the background. You probably didn't even notice. But do you know what actually happened this year? That I completely forgotten about. Fucking Stadia got shut down this year.
Oh fuck, that was yeah.
Don't bring it
At
up.
the
Sean's
very
still a bit
the-
sore about
I
it.
know,
it's crazy.
Poor else.
Yeah, sorry. It's just I actually forgot that was this year because I've just been like so like because I bought an Xbox after and I've just been on that non-stop. But yeah, it was a tear was shed, all right.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
shame.
the thing because like it sounded really, it sounded like a great idea, just horrible marketing.
Horrible marketing. I think they were a bit maybe too early to the like cloud streaming thing as well. But also, like I was saying this to Michael earlier before the podcast. It seems like I'm seeing a lot of like gaming YouTubers and stuff now come out whenever there's like something about Stadia. They just mention like how back then everybody was slamming it. Do you know, like nobody fucking liked Stadia. Now they're like, oh, the tech was actually really good. Like even to this day, it was still the most stable like tech for cloud streaming.
Because they have
there
that
was.
infrastructure. Google has the infrastructure to support that sort of thing. Yeah.
Completely, yeah. But they put like loads in R&D into that before they released it, you know. But then they just didn't have the marketing, and it was a bit of a clunky like model for, you know, like you had to buy the games and all this thing.
And even like the fucking UI, the lack of a search bar for the first fucking
8 months or something,
God,
man. Yeah, it's a shame that was. And actually, Steve, I just remembered one other thing we wanted to touch on was the Unity, the drama around Unity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, that was. Did you guys like know this whole story about Unity? Like, it's just absolutely like what they did basically.
It seemed like a bizarre business decision, and again fueled by that thing I brought up for the first time, capitalism. But
Yes,
what
that nobody
exactly
knows
was it?
about.
Their subscription model changed.
So for anyone who
Yes.
doesn't know what Unity is, Steve, if you just want to mention that first.
So Unity is basically like a physics engine that a lot of like game companies utilize because like it's really easy to implement, and it had a free subscription service. There is a premium subscription service. That's really hard to say in quick succession, but there is a premium subscription service where you pay extra for. But the main issue was for the free model. They changed it up so basically if your game reaches a certain amount of downloads, you will start getting charged for each individual download.
It's crazy.
And this is the developers get charged for an individual download. And this is the thing, like it doesn't matter if it's like one user gets it and downloads it on multiple devices, each download they're getting charged for, which is insane.
Go ahead.
So just one very quick thing. One thing that like I was thinking about that, and like a really like, for one thing, that's just like stupid and terrible for a lot of reasons. But one thing I was definitely thinking of is if people really hated a game, like really hated a game or hated a developer, all they have to do is buy it, download, uninstall, download, uninstall, download. Or they didn't have to keep doing that again and again, and they could absolutely bankrupt a small indie studio if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions people had, like after they announced this change, and they said that, it would only be the initial download. But then, like, the developers were asking, so how are we going to keep track of, like, do we have to submit how many people have downloaded the game?
And they were like, kind of like, we've got that covered.
Yeah,
like,
we'll
wink,
handle
wink.
that.
Like,
Don't worry. It's like, with no explanation.
Do you have that covered in a legal way? Or like, how are you tracking this exactly?
I think they at one point said something along the lines of, Sony and Microsoft will track downloads on their thing. And they were like, no. Yeah. What are you talking about? We're not fucking... This is your work.
Yeah, but then also it was like, so what happens though if the game is on Game Pass? And they were like, the platform holder will be charged, Microsoft. So then Microsoft could just turn around and say, we're not accepting Unity games anymore on Game Pass from developers, which is going to drive developers further away from Unity. So like, okay, we're not, like there was a load of developers that had games in development with Unity already or like just starting, and they came out publicly against it and said, we're going to switch to another engine. And like, it just seemed like the craziest decision from Unity to make, you know. But then, Steve, there was a bit of a U-turn, wasn't there?
Yeah, so like basically, and see, I have a theory about this as well, right? Because like basically they turned around, they said, no, you're not going to be doing this. I forget basically what they ended up with was, I think it was a tiny charge only for like, you know, the people who made like millions in their game sales or something like that. Like, but my theory on this is what they wanted to do all along. So they announced something absolutely ridiculous so that their actual thing that they wanted to do seemed much less ridiculous, like in the long run. So I think that's what they were going for, but it's I mean, who knows what was going on in their heads, because like this is the thing, if that was what they were doing, it was still a terrible idea, because now nobody ever wants to use Unity in case they change their mind again and decide to do this.
Their trust is gone basically.
Completely, yeah.
And if you think about a developer spending years making a game and it's like a modest success, that's the people it would hit most of all, is the people who have like a mid-range success with a game, and then like you're just losing money basically.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. You would have no incentive to make a good game. You'd want to make middle of the road games, and that's it. Which is like this would be like a dagger in the heart of creativity. Yeah. There's a tagline for you.
That Unity should add it to their website banner.
Cool. All right. Well, if everyone's cool, we'll move on to our personal top games of the year.
I think everyone is cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm wearing sunglasses inside. These are not ones necessarily that came out this year. Just the top 5 we've played this year, but there might be some that came out this year. You never know.
There may be. So who wants to kick it off?
I guess like we'll all do 5. We'll all do 4.
No. I think say all your games in a row.
How about this? Because just to be an asshole about it, how about I say 5 to 2.
And we leave the last one. Okay, that's good.
Just to leave a little suspense.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And you can just give us like a little really quick line about why it's in your list. But yeah, don't stay on it too long.
Geez, sorry, fucking stopwatch Sean here.
We'll have a chat at the end.
Yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir.
We'll have a chat at the end. So, Michael, go ahead.
So at number 5 is Slay the Spire, which is a fantasy deck builder game. I haven't played a lot of deck builder games. Sorry, Sean wants to interrupt me already.
I was just going to say, can you mention which games came out or when they came out?
Can't remember when this
Okay,
came out.
grand,
This did not
grand.
come out this year.
Okay.
I think I've only one game in my list that came out this year. But just Google Slay the Spire, guys, and you'll find out when it came out. Sorry, I haven't done my research on the year. But yeah, deck builder. I think the only one I'd played before is Inscription. But yeah, this is really addictive. Sort of turn-based combat. Very well designed. Nailed that sort of one more go gameplay loop, but was on a large scale because each time you go into a game, the map and enemy placement is randomized. So it's always a new sort of experience every time you start it. But it's constantly asking you to make tough choices and sort of, do I take a risk but possibly get a greater reward, or do I take a safer route but maybe I'm not powerful enough to take on a boss, etc. Always keeping you thinking with those sort of things.
Cool.
And it was very addictive. I wasn't crazy about the art style, but it was functional for what it was. It was made by a very small team. But the music and general atmosphere was very good. So number 5, Slay the Spire. Number 4 for me was Metroid Prime. Which is one we did for our other podcast series, From the Top, counting down the best games on Metacritic. And I didn't play the remaster. I played the not
Original?
quite the original. I played it on the Wii, but it's the original. It's a port of the original game. Yeah, really loved it. It's probably as good a 3D Metroidvania game has ever been made. It just really nailed the core parts of that experience in terms of learning a map layout and backtracking and opening up new areas with abilities. And I love backtracking for secrets and finding new things and new routes through places. And a game that rewards like your memory of a map and an area, like I really like that. And the atmosphere was amazing, even with the dated graphics and all. Like when you first land on the planet and you get out of your ship and it's the rain and you see creatures running around and the music, it's still very evocative, I have to say.
Had balls.
It had balls, definitely, like literal and figurative balls. But the Wii controls took a little getting used to. Like it was never intuitive to switch your gun or your visor settings. It was always awkward to do that. But the 3D movement controls were excellent in the game, like I have to say. So yeah, it was amazing to play. It was one of those ones where it's like, I love dipping back into a classic that I'd never experienced and realizing why people raved about this game. And I think that really justified it for me.
Cool.
Number 3 is a game called The Forgotten City. So this is a smaller indie game. It's got an interesting history. It started life as a Skyrim mod, actually, like 10 years ago or something like that, which was very successful. And it's basically the same core game. But then that did really well. The mod actually won awards. It's made by an Australian developer and it won some awards in Australia for writing. But then the makers broke off and remade the game in Unreal Engine without any affiliation with Skyrim. So they changed all the names and changed some of the setting stuff. And it's almost like a game made specifically for me, because I love some of my favorite like Bethesda experiences are the smaller DLCs, because they have these really contained stories and the writing's generally better, like stuff like Far Harbor in Fallout 4. And this is sort of like that. The writing is excellent, puzzles are interesting and logical, and the presentation is really good as well. Apart from, like, some of the voice acting is excellent and some of it's a bit subpar, and the facial animation stuff is very, like, wonky, to be honest. But, like, its central premise is really good, and it uses time loops as well, which is something that's been really popular over the last like 2 or 3 years in games. But it does it in a very interesting way. And it's probably the game on the list I'm most looking forward to replaying.
Oh, wow.
It's fantastic. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Was
Short
that this year?
No, that wasn't this year. I think it was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
2 or 3 years ago.
I didn't realize. I thought that was one of those games that once you play it, like you don't like it's not as good the second time around. Didn't realize it'd be kind of replayable.
Now, like you will have, because it's partly it's quasi a detective thing. It's not really, but there's a central mystery to unravel. You will know that, but it allows so many different approaches that that would make it interesting. And I think after a few years, if I forget some of the like finer details, that would make it a more interesting replay. But yeah, I love these smaller, not huge length games that really like can refine the experience. That's something I appreciate a lot more. And number 2 on my list, I've cheated here and I've put 2 games in here.
What?
But I know, I'm
Not
sorry,
allowed.
guys. But you'll understand why when I tell you what they are and I explain them. So number 2 is Chrono Trigger and Sea of Stars.
Okay.
So Steve automatically knows why both of those are in there. To sum it up, the main reason is Sea of Stars is incredibly influenced by Chrono Trigger. It's like almost like a modern reimagining of the game in a lot of ways. Chrono Trigger, obviously, like it's a landmark game, often cited as one of the best JRPGs of all time, and I think it really holds up still. The story, music, combat are all amazing. It has a time travel mechanic as well that they use in some fun ways in the story and in side quests. Like it's not a perfect game. I'm not sure I'd call it like one of the best games of all time. It's definitely an amazing experience, but I think there's some little things like the second half isn't as strong as the first half necessarily, and the world map, it's quite easy to get around, but it like this is a point Steve brought up to me, and it feels quite small as a result. It doesn't have like a peer of it would be Final Fantasy VI, and that feels like an epic adventure, like you're traveling across this massive land and going on this grand adventure, whereas this feels like smaller and contained, which is not something I generally want to get out of a JRPG experience, but like an amazing game, like really, and fun writing as well. Like I think it's aged quite well actually and very accessible. And then Sea of Stars came out this year actually, from an indie developer, and its most striking influence is Chrono Trigger. It sounds, looks and plays very similarly. But what it does is it refines a lot of the rough edges of those older JRPGs and makes it very easy to play. It's going to make it very hard for me to go back and play some of them older games because this is just so accessible, and it's got like a great mechanic with its turn-based combat where a lot of your attacks and defense have a timing button press attached to them and keeps you engaged. Like it solves that problem of a lot of people saying turn-based battles are boring. It maybe isn't as tactically deep as other JRPGs as a result of sort of refining those systems and making them more accessible, but like it's just it's a joy to play. The one flaw I would say is because it wears its influences on its sleeve, so apparently it doesn't have its own identity as strong. And the story probably doesn't stand up to some of those older JRPGs. But overall, like it was one of the most fun game. Like I played it directly after playing Final Fantasy 16, and it was exactly what I wanted because Final Fantasy 16 was okay, but it just got boring and weighed down.
Didn't make your top 5 though, did it?
Did not make my top 5. Yeah.
Spoilers for your number 1.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be Final Fantasy 16, unfortunately. But yeah, it's playing something like Sea of Stars, like really is like, oh yeah, this is what I want. This is like something that's fun and engaging and isn't weighed down by a lot of needless sort of genre conventions. So yeah, that's my 5-2-2.
Nice. Steve, do you want to go next?
Sure, go on then. Actually, it's funny that just before I say anything, it's funny that you said talk about Chrono Trigger, because at the time of recording, I'm actually playing Chrono Cross at the moment. Sad to say, hasn't made my top 5. Definitely has trouble living up to its predecessor. Not without its charms though, but like it's just too complicated a game. Okay, so. My top 5 games. Now, lads, as you know, I like my very weird, retro, bizarro games, like knitting simulators for the Game Gear. That's the kind of stuff that I'm into.
He's mad into those.
So it's really weird to me, right, that this year, like all the games that I was expecting to like, I didn't like as much, and all the games that I didn't expect to like have made it into my top 5.
It's
so
all
like
Grand Theft
nearly all
Autos.
of them. They're almost all exclusively like AAA games, like which is bizarre to me. But there you are. So my number 5 is 2017's Prey.
Oh,
Which-
cool. Yeah.
sick.
Yeah, that is a game that I did not expect to like at all, but I really, really got into it. It's a bit of a slow burn at first. Like it takes a while to get into it, but once you're in, like you're well in, and it's a great game. Really, really immersive. Highly recommend. I feel like both of you would really like it actually. So definitely highly recommend that one. Glue Gun is amazing. So much fun. My number 4, another one. This is one that like I literally just when I wanted a time sink, but like I could only play for like half-hour like bursts. This was the perfect game, and it was Tekken 7.
Oh, fuck.
Which yeah, like it's a weird one because like it's a Tekken game. Like there's not really much you can say about it because it's just Tekken. But for what it's worth, it's probably like the easiest to pick up and play fighting game I think I've ever played. Like it's so easy to pick up play. It's one of the few games I've actually platinumed because like it was really fun to just pick up and play. Handles really smoothly, just really fun. Everything's super accessible, and yeah, I could while away plenty of hours playing that. So
Who's your main? Who's your favorite fighter to use?
I'd say it's probably Paul Phoenix. I like him a lot.
The big hair dude. Cool.
Hair guy, yeah.
The big hair guy, big hair chap. Ever since Tekken 2, he's always been my guy. Even back when he was clean shaven back in the day. Third one is a really weird one because technically you could call this DLC. It was Uncharted: The Lost Legacy.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was a big game though. Like it's a good
It
few
was,
hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, like, there's a lot of things that I really like about this game compared to the typical, like, Uncharted. Like, I played, last year I played Uncharted 4, so I only got around to this one now. Have to say, I thought the characters in this were much better than, like, typical Nathan Drake and Sully. Like, really, really good characters, really believable, really, like, engage with him a lot. And, they've refined it so well. Like usually with these kind of games I don't do a lot of like side quests or anything, but there was one bit like in a big open world and I was just having so much fun in it that I was like, yeah, you know what, I actually want this game to last longer, which is very rare for me. Usually I'm just kind of like, I like just going from start to finish. I don't really like messing around, which is why GTA has never been my cup of tea.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't actually realize that there was open world segments in that one. That's cool.
Yeah, there's one chapter that has, similar to like Uncharted 4, there's one chapter that has a massive open world. And it's a really good, well, I say massive, it's pretty big. But like, it was good. No, I really liked it, I have to say.
Nice.
Yeah, and actually the fact that like, I think I finished it in like 9 hours, which I thought was a perfect length. Like a lot of these games are just like way too long. And I just thought like, no, that's just sick, perfect length. Next one, my number 2. This is a bit of an older one, and I know you guys have both played it. I finally got around to playing the Stanley Parable.
Oh, really?
class.
Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing game. Yeah.
This is the only indie on my list, but yeah, no, I think everybody who's anybody like knows all about the Stanley Parable. It's endlessly replayable. Like I love that. Like I wasn't even like finished playing it. Like I was like, I could keep playing this, and every single time is completely different.
Yeah.
I think I would say I might have seen just a little over half the stuff there is to see, but like, oh yeah, just incredibly good game, so well designed, just like so fun and funny.
Yeah.
Which is really, really rare. Like
The writing is amazing in that game, I have to say. It's very well written.
so
yeah.
good.
The narrator is brilliant. He's fantastic.
Yeah. It's really cool.
And I will say I did play the Ultra Deluxe edition, and you can see the bits that are like new, because like they make a whole thing about the fact that it is like a kind of a remake, and it's really, really well done, absolutely phenomenally well done. So like yeah,
Nice.
it was great.
I played the original one, but yeah, maybe I'll give the newer one a go and just see what it's like.
Does the newer one do that thing? Because I remember in the original Stanley Parable, it has a section where you jump into other games. Does it do that again?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember the games that they were.
Don't,
oh damn, I forgot.
don't tell me, because I think I'd like to try
it.
it actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually some of them I know are more modern ones. So yes, no, they definitely do have different ones there.
I was going to say as well, if you like that, Steve, one game I played this year, it's not on my list, but Superliminal is pretty good.
Oh, I have that. Yeah, I've been meaning to play it.
It
It
gave me a similar vibe to Stanley Parable, so it's pretty good as well. Yeah, if you get around to that.
Sick.
Sean,
Sean, do you want to give us yours there now?
Cool. Okay, so my top 5 to 2, bit of a a weird list. But anyway, we're starting off with number 5, which is
Great.
Resident Evil 4.
Original or remake?
The remake.
Okay,
Yeah,
amazing.
so
Okay.
it's the only game on my list that came out this year. It's low down because honestly, so I played Resident Evil 2 last year. So Resident Evil 2 would be in its place if I didn't play it last year. But I still loved Resident Evil 4 though. It's an absolutely gorgeous remake. I think the reason it's like probably a contender for Game of the Year possibly as well. But the reason it's number 5 on my list is just because it was an excellent refinement of the original, I think. But I still kind of felt a bit like I've played the game before, do you know, whereas with like contrasting to 2, they changed so much in 2, like mainly like the gameplay style was completely different, that it felt like a much newer game. So that's, but still I had like an amazing time with Resident Evil 4. It's really polished, really well done. Like I played it from start to finish, really enjoyed it. So yeah.
And the merchant is still in it. And
the merchant
still
is fucking still there. Yeah, the best part of the
What are
game.
you buying?
Yeah. So yeah, number 4 on my list is Cocoon. Which I've mentioned to you guys before. So this that came out this year as well. Yeah. So this was made by one of the guys who made Limbo and Inside. It's a really cute little puzzle game, and it's only about 5 hours long. Like it's not that long. Not a lot of controls to it either. It's really simple. But the main mechanic in the game is you go into other worlds within worlds, so it can get a bit like confusing as you go on, and the puzzles require you to jump to different worlds to finish one puzzle and things. It's really cool, but it's really well polished, really well put together. And just, I played it in, I think, like over 2 days, just straight through. And yeah, it's just a really enjoyable game. If you enjoyed Limbo or Inside, I think you'd enjoy this as well. It's a bit different. Like, it's a more isometric view, and it's like...
The art style is a bit different as well, yeah.
Yeah, the art style is really cool though, and like there's boss battles in it and stuff even, and some of them are really interesting and different as well. So yeah, really cool. I really recommend playing it. I think it'll probably win some like indie awards as well this year. Number 3, so I've done a bit of a Michael here, and it's technically 2 games.
Yeah, there we go.
But the difference is they're like direct sequel. One's a direct sequel. So it's neither of these came out this year, but Far Lone Sails and Far Changing Tides.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So these games are kind of like they're little indie side scrollers, but the main thing in it is I don't know, there's definitely a name for this kind of genre, but you're basically like controlling a machine. Your character has to, so basically in the first game you're kind of controlling a boat that's on land, like that's got wheels on it, but it's got a sail. It's a bit weird, this machine, and the whole idea of the game is like the journey. So you need to do a few different things at the same time to get the boat to move. Like you need to give it fuel, you need to put up the sail, things like that, and you need to like the weather changes, so you need to constantly like change different things on the boat to keep it moving. And so like from time to time you need to get off the boat and go and like clear an obstacle or pick up stuff, and it's just like a really it's like a really calm game to play, even though at times it can get a bit like, oh, there's so much shit I need to do right now, you know.
A little bit of a management sim thing.
That's a good way of putting it actually. But the story in it, like there's no dialogue or anything like that. It's kind of just seeing your character make his way like on this journey. It's the way, what I'll say, I won't give away too much. The second game was good. If I had to pick one, I'd pick the first, because the second game just like is a bit more of the first. You play a different character in the second game, but the end of the second game, without giving too much away, it brings kind of the series full circle in a way. And it did it in a way that blew my mind, that I was like, I was not expecting this, and it was such a like wholesome and cool moment at the end of it.
Okay.
So
Sick.
I was like, wow. And these are both like short games as well. I think the first one might have only been 3 or 4 hours, and the second one was like maybe 8 hours or something.
Oh, wow.
But so yeah, you can get like, they're not too long, but yeah, just really nice, enjoyable indie games. Really cool. Number 2, which Steve kind of he mentioned earlier in the podcast, and probably not expecting this one, but it's the Callisto Protocol.
I fucking knew it. I knew it would come in. Go on.
Okay, so at this point I want to say that my top 5 list, I'd say, is probably going to change in the next month, because I have just finished Alan Wake Remastered, and I bought Alan Wake 2, and it's waiting for me. And also, about a month ago, I think I got a deal on Dead Space, and I bought that. Still haven't played that either. So I'd say both of those would probably end up being in the list. But for now, I have to just go off what I played. I really enjoyed the Callisto Protocol. Now, I know it's got a lot of mixed reactions and stuff, but I've seen like some people praising it, other people are dunking on it. I do think it got a bit like too much hate at the time, because the Dead Space remake was coming out and people were expecting it to be exactly like Dead Space. But I mean, it was made by like half the team that made the original Dead Spaces. It's when I played it originally, it was like probably for me anyway, visually, it was like, wow, this is a next gen game. Like I think it was like 130 million the budget for this game. Like, and it shows, like, it looks gorgeous. I really enjoyed the story, the voice acting. Like, it's decent. I will say, yeah, the combat gets a bit repetitive over time. It mostly focuses on melee combat. There are like guns in it, but your melee is the strongest. But yeah, I had a great time with it, to be honest. And
is it scary?
Yeah, I'd say it's as much as scary as Dead Space is scary. You know, like there's a couple of jump scares in it, but not too many. Like, yeah, it's definitely more an action horror than a survival horror. But it's still got the slow pace of a survival horror, you know. The fact, I guess, that your melee is your strongest weapon, and you end up reverting to your melee a lot of the time anyway. So like, even if ammo is scarce, it doesn't really matter, you know?
That's weird though, because that's such a central point of a lot of survival. Not every survival horror game, but a lot of them is resource management. But by having a strong melee, it sort of makes that redundant in a way.
In a way, like your guns, I guess, like, will be better used at range, like, and like for keeping enemies back. Whereas, like, if you just really need to take this guy down, like, melee is usually the best way. But then there's like this dodge mechanic that you have to get used to, which is a bit simple, but at first it takes a bit of a learning curve to it. But once you get it, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, anyway, like I said, I'm sure probably Dead Space or Alan Wake 2 will most likely take over this once I get around to them. But still, I had a lot of fun with the game, and I think it deserves more. I think in years to come, I hope like it'll get more praise. But actually, Glenn Schofield, who was the director on it and the Dead Space games, he left the studio, and it was his studio, so it's not really good news for them. But
Probably not. No.
I hope he goes on to do something else cool. But I guess, yeah, time will tell. We'll see what happens.
Maybe he'll do a kickflip sometime or something like that.
I will say, like, I did hear like all the negative press about the game, and I'd kind of like, written it off until like you were talking about it earlier this year, Sean. I kind of made me decide, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. If you like it, I'll be like, yeah, I'll see what it's like.
It's on.
So like, you turned me around on it anyway.
Well, yeah, it's on the PS Plus now for this month,
yeah,
Steve.
I've since downloaded it. So
cool.
I mean, the fact that it's free as well, that does make it a lot easier to go for. But no, but like, even if it hadn't been free, I would have gone for it anyway. Because like, I mean, you spoke really highly of it, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll give this a go.
Yeah, see what you think. I mean, I think like you've already played the Dead Space remake, haven't you?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh,
no.
You haven't? Okay, well that's then you're going into it kind of like fresh. Like, see what you think. It mightn't be your cup of tea, but like give it a go, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say it'll be okay. All All right, so for our last one, do we want to, before we actually say it, do any of you want to guess the other people's last one?
Yeah, I wonder if you could guess
I think
mine.
I can guess yours, but maybe I'm far off.
I think I know what Michael's is actually.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
I think
One,
can I guess?
two. No.
Go ahead, yeah.
Is it Resident Evil 2 remake?
That was mine as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, all right. Tell us about that then.
Yeah, it's probably a surprise to some people because I cannot play scary games. I can't watch scary movies. I'm very much a scaredy cat in terms of a lot of these things, and it probably speaks to how good this game is that I wanted to push through all that. Yeah, absolutely amazing. It's one of those, again, like I was saying, it's amazing going back to revisit a classic. I know this only came out a few years ago, but it's pretty much regarded as like in the top 5 of all Resident Evil games, like really up there in terms of survival horror games. The atmosphere is absolutely amazing in this game.
Yeah.
It's so funny how they like I feel like looking back at footage from RE2, the original, like a lot of the tense atmosphere comes from the mechanics in that game, having the tank controls and shooting not being very intuitive, and that really works in that game. And like before this came out, I remember a lot of people being worried that would be lost because it has the modern style RE4 innovation of the over-the-shoulder controls, but they completely replaced that with aesthetic atmosphere. So going down those corridors in the police station with just a flashlight,
Terrifying, isn't it?
they judge things so well. Yeah, just really, really well done. Like it I hate that I'm so scared of these things because horror is such a good genre for this sort of thing. And like video games especially just absolutely nail it. The level design is absolutely genius and constantly surprised me. Like, here's a side note. I only ever played the demo of the original Resident Evil 2 back in the day. So I only ever, I think that stops in some place in the police station. I can't remember. But so it absolutely blew my mind when you looped back up to the police station from the sewers, which made it one huge interconnected level. Because by the time I left the police station down to the sewers, I thought, okay, well, there's some doors I hadn't unlocked, but I guess that was just side stuff that I didn't get. Well, that's disappointing, but I'm moving on with the story. And when I looped back and then I could go into all these other places, it was absolutely mind-blowing. I love that. That part of the game really scratched an itch for me. The backtracking, learning the layout. Like, I love Metroidvanias, and that sort of ties into something similar there. Learning, what's a dangerous corridor, balancing my inventory. I need heals because I'm going down this place that has 2 liquors in it, but I also know there's like 2 items I need to pick up there, so I really need to think about my route through here. The puzzle design was really good as well. A lot of people shit on the Resident Evil puzzles, but maybe this is just a good example of them. But I really enjoyed the way you found clues. Like, sometimes they're written up on a board, sometimes you have to figure out things in the environment. Like, there's a really good one at the beginning where you have to unlock Leon's desk because it's his first day on the job, and you have to look at the name plates on each individual desk, but there's a zombie in the way of one, and one of them's knocked over on the desk, and just little things that keep you engaged. It's way better than just like learning a passcode and then entering the passcode. And here's another side note. I never played the original. I only played the demo back in the day, and I was never that fully invested in the series. But for some reason, when I was a kid, I had a Leon action figure from RE2, because when he got one of the guns, I was like, I recognize that gun. Oh yeah, I had an action figure from back there. I have no idea why. Mr. X is genius as well. He's so fucking good. The way he's introduced is absolutely amazing when he just pushes aside the fucking helicopter and then it's all in game. It's not a cutscene. That's a genius move to have that happen just right in front of you. And then, like, after a while, you get used to him and he becomes more of an annoyance in some ways. Not an annoyance, like he keeps the tension up. But at first, when he enters the room, you're like, fuck, I need to run. I need to go. But after a while, you get used to them and you're like, okay, I can hear the footsteps coming. I'm going to pat my route out and circle around. But to have that thing of a constant sort of push underneath you, lighting a fire underneath you throughout the whole game is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. It's like whenever you step out of the safe room, you're like, fuck, is he going to be around the corner now and I have to run back or
Which
whatever?
direction is he going to be in? Have I cleared this corridor in front of me? Am I just going to have to run through and waste a load of ammo? Like, all that stuff is so well balanced. The story's cheesy. Some of the voice acting is still, and lines are pretty bad. The one I have to point out, Marvin, I think his name is, the cop you meet who's wounded in the police station. He's really good.
Yeah.
I thought he was excellent. And the dialogue exchanges with him and Leon felt real and not cheesy. Gets very cheesy towards the end when you're kissing Ada and like it's like there's a big, oh, no, don't leave, no, I'm holding your hand over a precipice sort of thing. Like, I understand that cheese goes hand in hand with Resident Evil, but there are times when it played like, I love John Carpenter films, and it played like a bit like an Assault on Precinct 13 adaptation. Like, it had that tense atmosphere, you're scrounging for supplies, like you're barely surviving. Yeah, I couldn't get enough of this game. And yeah, it's weird, I've played this and 5 with Steve, and now I'm a fan of the Resident Evil series,
Sick,
which
man.
I never thought I would be. So yeah, I'm definitely going to play a bit more of them, I think.
Have you, I think there's DLC on too, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's side stuff as well, like what's the guy with the Hulk or Hunk or what's the
Hunk, yeah.
Hunk, yeah.
Hunk and Tofu.
I was right. I was like, Hunk's surely not right, but yeah, apparently it is Hunk. There's all that sort of stuff, and I'm sure there is some DLC as well. But I'm in Claire's campaign at the moment, but
Sick.
absolutely loving it.
The DLC is rock hard, just to like let you know, it is really tough.
Okay.
At one point there, you mentioned liquors, and I really wanted to interrupt and say, liquor? I hardly know her.
I would have loved that interruption, to be honest. Yeah, let's edit that in.
Great, okay.
Fantastic. What about you, Steve?
Do you want to guess at all?
Shit, I can't think
You were
of-
a hard one to guess for those.
Is it unexpected?
It is very unexpected. I will tell you that much. I'll
of
give
Duty.
you a hint.
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing about that might help you now. So, Michael, when this game was announced, I think it was at an E3, and we looked at the trailer for it, and we both, after the trailer, we looked at each other and was like, "That looks shit."
That could be a lot of games, but I'm very intrigued now, I have to say.
Okay, this one is going to surprise you genuinely, but the best game I played this year was Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
amazing.
I did not like. Now, one thing I have to get out into the open straight away, right? The gameplay in this, fantastic. The meta story. Now, I have to emphasize this: the meta story that is involved in it, fantastic. The main character and the main story, I fucking despise. Which this will tell you how good the gameplay is, that I like this is my number one game in spite of how much I hated the story.
Yeah, okay.
Like, the story is awful, but the gameplay is absolutely amazing. It's one of the most fun games I have played in a really long time. Like, fighting giant robot dinosaurs, which looked really cheesy when it was revealed. Like, I remember looking at that and thinking, like, this just looks like a boardroom full of 40-year-old men saying, like, what the kids like? Robots, dinosaurs. But like, it works so well, like, and it's so satisfying to play. I absolutely love just like running around doing little side quests, like shooting things. Like, it just feels really, really good to play. And I will say, had some of the best graphics I have ever seen.
yeah.
Like, this is a PS4 game, and I think this looked better than a lot of PS5 games that I had. Like, really, really phenomenal looking game. Like, so many times I just stopped just to look at it because, like, this looks incredible. So good.
I just want to, have you played the sequel, or are you going to play the sequel?
I don't see, the thing is, right, I don't think I will, because like I feel like everything I want out of this I got out of the first game, because usually, like, with games that I like if I like the story or something, it's like, yeah, of course I'll play the sequel. I want to see where it goes. Or
Right,
like
yeah.
something like Dark Souls, like, yeah, I'll keep playing that because it's like a slightly different experience. But like, the thing, Horizon Zero Dawn, it just did one thing I liked really, really well, and I don't really need another game of that, because like I could just keep playing this one. Also, I hear a lot of people are quite down on the sequel, so like I'm like, I'm not too pushed on it then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. That is surprising, but I do remember you saying you were enjoying that during the year, actually. And it's one, I think I played like the first hour of it and it didn't click with me, but might need a bit more time. Yeah.
Yeah, because like this is the thing, like again, it has to be, because the start of it, like you're just dealing with the story and the main character, both of which is absolutely atrocious. Like for people who have played the game, they'll know what I mean when I say the meta story. Like when you realize what's going on in the game, it's probably what you expect. But and like it's done really, really well. But when you're dealing with all the like, you know, the tribes and like the way they're talking about like the chosen one and all this, it's really cringy and awful. But when you take a step back and kind of like see what's happening in the game, it's like, oh, this is real. It's actually quite smart, the meta story. So like I'm a big fan of that. But like, the main character, she's bloody awful. Absolutely hated her.
Okay, cool. That's a weird note to end on, but yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? All right, now, Sean, I know it's the multiplayer for Spec Ops: The Line. Am I right?
No, any legitimate guesses?
Battlefield?
No.
Oh, okay.
Fuck, what would it be? I'm trying to think. Oh, actually, I do have a guess, maybe. Is it Alan Wake?
No, I did enjoy that, but no, I didn't make my top 5.
Okay, I don't know.
It's Signalis, actually.
Oh, shit.
Oh, of course, I should have guessed that, yeah.
So yeah, Signalis is like kind of a retro like survival horror game. It's got, I don't know, like not 8-bit, but it's got like 32-bit graphics or whatever, and it's isometric style. Really like, yeah, really good survival horror game for like the style it's in as well. Like it's kind of going back to, I guess, like PS1 style, but it's not quite tank controls. It's a bit different. Well, it is, but it's like a different viewpoint. Yeah, I don't know like what more to say about it than I've said in the past, but it's just there's like backtracking in it. It's very reminiscent of like the early Resident Evils, the way you need to solve puzzles, backtrack for clues and stuff. The story is very kind of ambiguous in it. They give you like a little bit of the backstory. You land on an unknown planet, and there's like kind of rogue AI going around the place,
walking around fucking knocking over waste bins.
The item management and like the combat in it is really good as well. For the style that the game is in, like it really does like kind of the tension in it is brilliant. Like and the kind of the save room thing that I was talking about before, like that fear of leaving the save room and stuff, that's all in it as well. And it was just like a beautifully packaged game. And I think the fact that the story is a bit ambiguous as well, it kind of like leaves some stuff up for interpretation, which is cool. There's also a few like little twists in it in gameplay, even like without giving too much away. There's like a couple of sections where the game goes first person.
Oh wow!
Out of nowhere, and it's like, what the hell? Like they're almost kind of like dream sequences in the game, but it's really cool when that happens. You're like, what the hell is going on?
I love when games sort of throw that in. And Nier Automata did that as well. It would change viewpoint and sort of almost change genre for like a few sections. Like I always like that in the game.
Yeah, the sound design is amazing. The imagery is really cool. Yeah, and it was a game I played earlier this year. It actually released last October, but I just like fell in love with it and played it from start to finish straight away and loved it. Yeah, and I definitely recommend. I know I've said it to you already, Steve, but like if you're into survival horror at all, like definitely give it a go. It's really good.
Yeah. I do like to dabble every now and then, yeah.
Okay, sounds sick. Great. So that's our personal top 5s of the year. So yeah, what are we going to do to round us off, Sean?
So yeah, the Game Awards is just around the corner. I think it's is it the 7th of December?
Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of become like, just wanted to mention, like with the absence of E3, I feel like, and through the years anyway, it's grown in popularity, but I feel like it's become the definitive like gaming event of the year now, because not only do we get to see like awards given out for some of the greatest games of the year, there's also like a heavy emphasis on reveals and trailers at it, and that's kind of always like that. Like it's not like E3. It's more like who knows what's going to show up, because not everything will be there, only certain things, and it's kind of up to Jeff Keighley really what gets shown. But he sometimes comes out with like really good partnerships and like shows off like world premieres, like that world premiere logo just constantly flashing
every time,
up.
Well, was Elden Ring revealed
Yeah, I think
at
so.
Game Awards or one of Jeff Keighley's events? And some other huge like for Xbox console.
Hellblade was shown like the last few times as well. So yeah, I kind of just want to talk about, well, first of all, just a little bit of discussion about what we think will be nominated for Game of the Year. Now, in the past, I think it's usually only been 6 nominations, but there has been talk of maybe he'll actually expand the nomination count this year because there's been so many games released. But for this discussion, let's stick with there's only going to be 6.
And just like the nominations will have come out by the time you're hearing this podcast.
Yeah, probably.
I'd say some of them will definitely are sure bets. Anyway,
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's going to be there's so many good games that don't make the list, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
think
think or sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Let's say one very obvious one. One thing I know will be nominated. Like, this isn't even a guess. It definitely will be. Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be up there.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I think that'll
Definitely,
win, to be honest.
I
Sorry
think so
to
too.
jump to the
Yeah.
conversation,
Same.
but
Yeah.
it feels like that it's
Right,
between
podcast
that.
over.
Play that outro team. No, but it's between that and Tears of the Kingdom, I think, and I think it'll edge it out just because there hasn't been a Baldur's Gate game for years, and it was in some ways, a surprise how big the game got.
Yeah.
Sort of similar to the way Elden Ring landed a lot heavier than people expected and got a lot bigger. And it's sort of a genre that hasn't been in that huge AAA sphere for a while, and they did such a good job with it.
Yeah.
Saying that Tears of the Kingdom sold bucket loads and was a huge
feel
game as well. Like
The hype for that is a bit gone, though. Like, I mean, that kind of came and went really quickly.
Like, did it do as well as
it sold bucket
Yeah.
loads. I think it's going to be the top selling game of the year.
No, but did it do as well as the one before?
Breath of the Wild?
Breath of the Wild, yeah.
Well, Breath of the Wild has been
it's
out for
outsold
years, but yeah,
Really?
maybe over the same amount of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are 2 locks that we have already. Personally, I'd say RE4 Remake and Armored Core 6, I think.
Armored Core 6, really?
I don't know if Armored Core 6 will get in.
Think about we only got 6 now.
Now, I know that, but like, I think, well, he's got From Software have got a strong pedigree in the awards. Like, I think all of their games for the last how many years have been nominated for Game of the Year at least. And it didn't land as big as some other ones, but it's definitely in that mid-tier in terms of the year where it might scrape in, I think. It's got some devoted fans to it. And I think RE4 Remake is almost a lock as well. I'd nearly put that in 3rd place, to be honest.
Yeah, I think just from all the hype and reviews around it, I think Alan Wake 2 might actually be a contender.
Because it's just come out so recently as
Yeah.
well, and it's got like amazing buzz around it.
But like games that I think, do you think Spider-Man 2 is going to get in?
I feel like it probably will.
Maybe, yeah. I'd be like, with some of them, I might be a little disappointed because it's sort of like, I'd really like to see an indie in there, like Sea of Stars or Cocoon.
An Indian.
An indie, an indie space.
I'd love to see an Indian there.
I think the indie award itself will be stacked this year, and it would be good to see something squeeze in. I think Sea of Stars is sold quite well, so that might bear fruit. And it was on PS Plus as well, so probably got a lot of play through that. But it's hard to know. It's such a stacked year. Like,
I think. Or sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Sorry,
it's like the 4th time I've done that.
Yeah, I know, it always happens. Sorry,
No, it's all right.
Because Michael talks so much.
Yeah.
I gotta get in there. I know. Do you know one game I was thinking of that might make it in, because like it was really big deal when it came out, is Street Fighter 6 made a big splash when it was announced.
very true.
Like,
actually,
yeah, like, and like that like was really quite a revolutionary game. People were talking about the way it trained players, like, you know, to actually learn the moves, which, because this is like one thing that's really true about fighting games is like they've gotten so complicated now that unless you were always playing fighting games, you can't really get into them anymore. So the fact that they did that, like, is I think that might maybe make it in.
I wonder if Lies of P would sneak in as well.
Yeah,
Doubt it.
I don't know. It's gotten a lot of like hype and good reviews, but I don't know if it's like in such a stacked year. Probably not. Like one game I think might not get in either is Starfield, and that was a huge game, but it only like.
There's been a little bit of backlash against it, I've noticed in the last while.
Like, it is a great game and all, but like it didn't even make my top 5. I'm still playing it, but I think it's a bit too not mid, but like mixed reactions to it. And there's so many, like in any other year, I think definitely it would get in there, but I don't think it will actually.
Like we've got stuff like Jedi Survivor,
Jedi Fallen or Survivor, yes,
and that and Diablo 4. Like stuff like that would again be a lock any other year and might not even make it in. And like some smaller stuff, I guess, as well, like Hi-Fi Rush was quite well received and when it came out. But again, just such a stacked year. If they did expand it, maybe something like that would sneak in, but sort of hard to see it at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you think Mario Wonder might make it in?
I haven't even been
I've heard people raving about that.
People seem to love it. Like, apparently it's like doing really, really, like they're saying it's like the best like 3D Mario since like Super Mario World back on the Super Nintendo. So like,
okay.
Is it not 2D, Steve?
Sorry, 2D. Sorry.
It's so hard to say. Like we've got like I think those 3 RE4 remake, Tears of the Kingdom, and Baldur's Gate 3 are locks. After that, it's anyone's game.
The thing is, I'm not even sure about RE4.
I think I would bet on that one getting
because it's a remake though. It might slip out because there's been so many other good like new games.
But not only that, because like now this is very dependent on what they base the nominees on, because if it's going for pure popularity, yes, Resident Evil will be doing it. But if there's like innovation being involved there, I think Dead Space would edge it out because that did more interesting things than RE4 did.
Well, Dead Space was more of a straight remake though. RE4 at least changed up some stuff. As far as I'm aware, Dead Space is like a graphics overhaul more than anything else.
Yes, but like Dead Space had a really interesting like AI system built into it that like was, again, like nobody talked about it. I thought it was absolutely fascinating when I heard about it. Like I think I talked about it on a previous podcast about how like there's kind of a random element like into it, so that like no playthrough will ever be quite the same. So you'll have like, oh, the light went out in that corridor on this playthrough, but like on another playthrough, a like monster might jump out of a vent instead. You know, which I think is incredible. Like that's an insanely cool thing to have in a game. So, but this is the thing, like if it's based on popularity, you're probably right. It probably will be RE4 though. And
to be honest, well, unless I'm forgetting something though, I don't really remember like that much innovation in RE4. Like
they have changed up the game a bit, but it's my point I'd be making there is there's more of a refinement from the original than happened in Dead Space. But again, it's sort of a coin toss between both of those in a way. Just a brief mention: Final Fantasy 16 might get some nominations, but I don't think it's going to make it into.
Definitely not. No,
especially in such a mid-year, it might sneak in, but I don't think this year it's going to make it.
Unless there's like a wild card that manages to win it, I'd probably be with you and thinking Baldur's Gate 3 is probably going to win.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Zelda got it, but it's been Baldur's Gate's year, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And hats off to Larian Studios, based in Dublin. Or at least some of them are based in Dublin.
Based in Dublin. But they seem to have knocked it out of the park. It was a labour of love and a bit of a gamble because they put a lot of money into something and sort of stepped up into AAA.
I have heard like some people, and I don't know if it's been like patched and stuff since, but the third act of the game isn't as good apparently. So maybe that could like go against them, but who knows? But
there is loads of sex in it though. Like that's the thing. Like,
it's the sex awards. Sorry, what was
Probably
that?
is an
We've
award.
been
He knows
podcasting
how
for
to
a
make
while.
me giggle.
Oh yeah, Hogwarts Legacy came out this
Fucking
year.
hell, there's another one. Yeah.
I don't think it'll make it
I
in.
don't-
to be
Nah, I
honest.
don't
They
think so.
won't. They
either.
won't make that in purely for the scandal that would happen if they did leave it in.
Yeah, and it's been so long since it. Like that was right at the beginning of the year, so I'd be very surprised if it made it in. But yeah, we're all thinking
King Kong. Skull Island, or even like that. That'll probably get in there, I'd say.
Is there like do you know they have the Golden Raspberry Awards, which is like the alternative to the Oscars, where they talk about the worst
I
films
didn't even
of
know
the
that was
year.
a thing.
Yeah, I wonder if there must be a gaming equivalent somewhere where they talk about the worst. It'd be a good year for worst games of the year as well.
Yeah.
In fairness,
Yeah, cool. I mean, I guess we're kind of there's so many options that could make it in. There's going to be like a lot that gets cut, unfortunately. But I think it would be a smart decision for them to expand the nominee list, like maybe to 9 at least. But I guess we'll see in I think mid-November they're bringing it out. So probably by the time this podcast is out. But
and I'm just really looking forward to the inevitable fuck up on the awards day when
Can't
somebody
wait, man.
storms the stage
Yeah.
or some actor talks for way too long.
we should go watch it in the IMAX.
I hope the Kratos actor comes back just to finish off his speech.
Yeah, there's some people you forgot to thank. So.
Brilliant. Oh man.
Jeff Keighley never change, man.
Yeah.
Keep up the awkwardness. I love it.
It is great though having like some kind of live event to look forward to in the year because like it's cool just like getting all the announcements, but then just it's all the little preamble and stuff around it just makes it like fun and exciting, you know. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's kind of a good place to end, really. Just really quickly before we wrap up, what are you guys playing at the moment?
RE2 remake.
Oh yeah, he literally just said it. Yeah.
So did I. I'm playing Chrono Cross.
Oh, okay. Well, I am. I guess I'm still playing through Starfield, and I just finished Alan Wake remastered. So I'll probably.
Is Alan Wake remastered worth me?
I'd say yeah. So like it's very different to the new one. The new one is going like full throttle survival horror. The first one's more action horror. It's surprisingly like was scarier than I expected it to be though. Like the sound design in it is amazing. How they like when the enemies show up, there's a little bit of a slow motion and a zoom out from you, and it shows where the enemies pop up. But they do this like really loud like string tension thing, and it like every time it scares. It's like fuck's sake.
Oh, nice.
And then there's also some jump scares in it with like very quick cutscenes that happen just while you're walking around. Like a face will just appear on the screen. I'm like, thanks for that.
I don't dig that shit, man. Yeah, that seems cheap
I
to
love
me.
that stuff.
Oh, I can't deal with that.
It is a little cheap, but I guess in the in this context of the story, it kind of makes sense because he's trapped in this nightmare thing. But yeah, I think the remaster was done really well, and I actually read. I think coming into here today that Remedy finally recouped the costs on the first Alan Wake from the remaster.
Wow, was it that much of a flop when it first came out?
I think it's just a lot of people, like, it just turned a lot of people off, but people didn't vibe with it as much.
It was Xbox exclusive at first, I think,
It
wasn't it?
was. It was an exclusive, and I guess like Remedy were known for Max Payne at that time. That was all they had made, and I'm not sure if it's all they were made, but it's what they were known for. And then they came out with this thing, which was a little bit janky at times and stuff as well. Like going back to it now, like it's a third person game, but it's not an over the shoulder third person, and it's a little bit. The combat is once you get used to it though, you hit a point where you're like, cool, I'm gelling with this now. But I think, yeah, definitely worth to play. Like, if you want to play the second one, I'd recommend playing it first to get a bit of the backstory.
Yeah, they do seem to tie together a lot, is what I've heard. So, yeah, maybe I will.
And, yeah, you can get the remastered version on sale quite often now as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's it, folks. We'll be back at some point, hopefully before the end of the year, maybe with a different podcast. We'll see.
No.
Okay, no, we will not be back. See you in 2024, guys. This is it.
Maybe, who knows?
Good luck. Yeah, let us know in the comments what your prediction is for Game of the Year. And yeah, catch you on the next one.
I love you.
Toodaloo.
Good luck.